Hello and welcome to Maqala Foresight. This is Mikhail Mnasse, producer and host of the show. With me today is Professor Hassan Keynan, a distinguished academic. Now retired, he had worked as UN official since early 1990s in 4 continents, including Africa. He is a close observer of the Horn of Africa, a region he says is close to his heart. He writes and blogs about events unfolding in the Horn of Africa. Professor Hassan Keynan, welcome to Maqala Foresight.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mikhail. I'm quite appreciative of the opportunity. Nice to meet you for the first time.
Thank you very much. Let's just start with what you said recently. You drew a parallel between what is happening in Ethiopia and Afghanistan and attributed the tragedy in Ethiopia to the fact that the leadership of the Prosperity Party, which you labeled as a fascist organization, has lost grip of the reality in the country. And you added in that interview that what we are seeing in Ethiopia today is the last scene of a drama that has been unfolding for decades, that has been in the making for over a century. I find this very engaging point. Would you please shed more light on this and also explain the fact that a few years ago, Ethiopia was on the upward trend seen by many as a beacon of the Horn of Africa, of Africa in general? Professor.
Thank you very much, Mikhail, again. It is true. Nothing happens suddenly and overnight. Everything that happens we see in Ethiopia or elsewhere in the world is deeply rooted in some history. And Ethiopia is no exception in this sense. But when I have looked at the history of Ethiopia and at the politics and society of Ethiopia, I see that what we see today may have been in the making for decades, even a century. Starting with, I must say, about 132 years ago with the rise of what many Ethiopians consider as the father of Ethiopia, Menelik. And at that time, that was the time when the what I call political fiction imagined by Menelik at that time came into being. And since that time, we have seen crisis unfolding decade after decade. Ethiopia has been in the throes of a vicious cycle, very vicious cycle, bloody cycle for many years. There were times when Ethiopia has seen a modicum of peace and stability and progress, but sadly, that has become only momentary in the long history of Ethiopia. There has the tendency is to go back and hark back to what I call the Abyssinian tradition. Really, if you look deeply into what is happening in Ethiopia, we have to understand where are the roots of these problems. And in my understanding of Ethiopia as imagined by Menelik and maintained by subsequent leaders has had a congenital dysfunction, an affliction that it has inherited from Ethiopia, and that is the Ethiopian state and the political culture of most of the political elite of Ethiopia, which has failed either to make sense of what has been bequeathed by former leaders or to bring about transformation that is inclusive and beneficial to all nations and nationalities that live within the borders of Ethiopia. So it is very true that Ethiopia has seen, particularly during the post-Mengistu area, a period of stability and growth. But I must say that it has not entirely, even with that period, resolved the deep problem, the deep tragedy and misfortune that has afflicted Ethiopia, even during the periods of stability and growth. Because as you may have known, even during that time, there were serious and egregious violations of human rights that has happened in some regions of the country. But by and large, it is true that there are similarities between what we are seeing, the tragedy we are seeing unfolding in Afghanistan, and the tragedy that is unfolding in Ethiopia. And at the bottom, at its core, it is failure of leadership. The PP, which has been put together very quickly and rapidly in a disorderly manner, in an undemocratic manner, in a way that was not inclusive and democratic, has been in power for less than 2 years. And what has happened during those less than 2 years, about 18 months or so? The country has gone down in a spiral of violence, economic collapse, diplomatic relations with the world, particularly with the Western world, that have always been a friend of Ethiopia and that has sustained Ethiopia for centuries, all of a sudden has come to a complete stop. Militarily, the national army, what used to be the national defense force of Ethiopia, has completely collapsed in a way that is very difficult to understand. Even in the annals of military history, it is very difficult to rationally explain what has happened to the Ethiopian National Army. And also economically, previous years we have seen that, at least what we have been reading from statistics, for decades, Ethiopia's growth, as per IMF and World Bank, was averaging about 9% growth, compared to the world, which was fairly high, extremely high. Now we are talking about on the verge of economic collapse. The inflation rate is almost unbearable for most of the Ethiopians. I talked to many friends in Addis Ababa, and they are telling me that the basic staple of Ethiopia has doubled the price, in the last 6 months. So in every respect, you look at what is unfolding in Ethiopia, there is clearly not only a failure, but a catastrophic failure of leadership on the part of PP, which I must say it is wrongly named or misnamed, because prosperity has nothing to do with this party headed by Abiy.
And yet, the leader of the Prosperity Party, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, has been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for promising reforms and for bringing about peace between Ethiopia and Eritrea.
It is one that happened. I worked and lived in Norway for many years, and I have Norwegian friends. And when I learned in October of the year that Abiy has been awarded the Nobel Prize, I was really extremely personally shocked. And I was one of the first who has written to the Norwegian Nobel Committee, saying that they have made a terrible mistake, because everything about the background of Abiy, I have not known him before that time, but when I dug into his history, I have seen nothing about his background and about his profession and about experiences that would enable him to be given the biggest peace award in the world. So that was, in my view, a catastrophic error of judgment on the part of the Norwegian Nobel Committee. And I even wrote that an article titled Nobel Howls from His Grave, saying that you must revoke the Nobel Peace Prize given to Abiy Ahmed. So of course, the Nobel Peace Prize does not bestow upon any individual qualities that he or she did not have before, but it has given him some semblance of legitimacy and some clout within the international community and even within Africans. But that was really a tragic mistake on the part of Norwegian Nobel Prize. And I am sure, based on what I'm hearing from Norway now, they are regretting, and there is a fear that of awarding the Nobel Prize to any individual right now, other than those who actually they know very well. So that was a tragic error of judgment, but it did not really add anything to the quality and the qualifications of the person that we have. All what we have to see is what he has presided over during the last 3 years that he has been in power. And one other thing I would like to mention in connection with the Nobel Peace Prize is that Abiy has some quality to deceive people. And one of the things that he did that has deceived a lot of people, including Norwegians, was the nomination of a large number of women into the cabinet, including one that he called in a something that has Orwellian undertones, peace, Ministry of Peace. A Norwegian friend called me from Norway saying that, oh, this guy is great because he has established a Ministry of Peace, which is never heard before in Africa, and a woman is heading. And I say that please look deeper. So the way he or whoever was advising him has really managed to fool a great deal of people. He has given a large number of posts to women, and now even it is some of them I know. The president, for example, I know. I have worked with her in Nairobi, where she was the head of the UN office in Nairobi when I was there, Gigiri. And a judge is now the heading. A female is heading the Supreme Court, the High Court of Ethiopia. The election board is headed by another lady, the Minister of Peace. And look at the tragedy, the curse that they are living with right now. Who in the world would like to live and to work under Abiy today? It is really, I feel really sorry for them. It's a pity. But that was a ploy that he wanted to deceive, in my personal opinion, the world, so that they will give him something that he does not have inside.
Okay. Moving on to another issue, the Amhara Regional State President told the national broadcaster this week on the 2nd of September that the regional state forces have repelled new attacks by forces of the Qimant ethnic group through what he called is a third frontier from areas where the region is bordering with Sudan. The Tigray Defense Forces, which liberated Mekelle last June, have since expanded its offensive in neighboring regions. The Oromo Liberation Front, OLF, is reportedly controlling many parts of Oromia. There is some level of insurgency in Somali, Benishangul Gumuz, Afar, and other regions of Ethiopia. Many fear Ethiopia might be heading to state collapse. Do you share this fear?
Given exclusively on the basis of what we are observing in Ethiopia on the ground right now, it is very difficult to rule out that scenario. It may not happen, of course, we cannot be 100% sure, but the all indicators that we see today, either if within Ethiopia reasonable forces that save that country do not emerge, or the international community fails to call Abiy for what he truly is and take necessary and urgent steps to save that country, that is a realistic scenario. And we have seen the Ethiopian tradition also. Rarely has Ethiopian leaders have a democratic tradition, tradition of tolerance, a tradition of inclusion, a tradition of working out solutions within a democratic space. If you for example, in the current federal constitution has all the provisions to solve about any problem in Ethiopia. But once he has come to power, after he has come to power, Abiy has decided to completely ignore the constitutional space within which the country was working. So, and he has sadly and tragically, not only he has abandoned and jettisoned the constitution and the legal framework in the country, but he has allied himself with forces that are clearly not only extremist in every respect, but in many ways actually genocidal. It is not only, my fear is not only a disorderly, implosion of the state, but also a scenario in which we can see another genocide in Africa with a space of decades. This is a realistic possibility. When you look at what we are hearing from the Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation, what we are hearing from some of the leaders, particularly the leaders of the Amhara region, the narrative that they use, it is clearly the narrative of genocide. And the implements of genocide are also we see. We see that state television showing citizens wielding up machetes and axes. This is not a responsible leadership. The national television of a country should not be showing such messages. And the leaders who are actually using the narrative of genocide unashamedly and without equivocation, without restraint, are really very serious, very, very dangerous to the existence of Ethiopia and to the peace and stability of that region as a whole. So it is clearly a possibility, state failure, but we do not have to give up hope. I believe that if forces of reason, if forces of democratic forces in Ethiopia get together, they may overcome these difficulties, because eventually what everybody wants is really a democratic space in which every community, every nation and nationality have their rights respected, have their dignity respected, have their status and livelihoods and democratic rights respected. Abiy has completely failed this, and I do not see him or those around him being part of a solution for Ethiopia, part of sustainable solution for Ethiopia. It is very hard to see that.
The fear of possible genocide also been, many have been sounding this alarm of fear of genocide in Ethiopia. What is holding back the international community from recognizing this and acting upon it?
I must, I come from the UN background where I have worked for nearly 3 decades. And I have faith in the system, in the multilateral system. But in the particular case of Ethiopia this time, I think the international community has not really did not understand the terrible dynamics that we see in Ethiopia, or they really do not care. Ethiopia has passed a stage. We are seeing a stage where national leaders and national media are clearly, loudly, and unashamedly using the language of genocide and giving people implements and narratives of genocide. This is very dangerous. Any responsible position, any person, any leader in the world who is holding a position of authority, particularly those who are in the Security Council and have a veto power in the Security Council, and the Secretary General has a responsibility, a duty to activate what is called the responsibility to protect. You know, this responsibility to protect came after the genocides of Bosnia and Rwanda. And we are clearly seeing indicators that lead to a potential genocide. They must act. So far, I think the politics in the Security Council has not helped. Some governments, particularly China and
Russia,
and some non-veto power members, including some big Asian countries who have always had the reputation of being the biggest democracy in the world, all of a sudden are defending what's happening in Ethiopia. This is, I say, shame on you, because they should either listen or try to talk to their ambassadors in Addis Ababa and get them first-hand information of what's unfolding in the country. What we see and what we hear from the leaders of Ethiopia, particularly the federal leadership and the leadership of the Amhara regional state, are indefensible and unacceptable.
What repercussions could this have, in the wider region, in the Horn of Africa and beyond?
Generally, when a country collapses and when a genocide happens, it has serious repercussions, both primarily for the country, but also for neighboring countries and largely the international community. Because, as you know, we do not live by bread alone. As human beings, the leaders of the world and every human being must see a dignity in every human being. Once we have seen the ease with which genocide happened in Bosnia and in Rwanda, they have slept. Some of the key powerful people and the countries of the world have slept. And later on, after decades, they went to Kigali and apologized. That need not happen right now. In situations where you see really the conditions are ripe for the commission of atrocity crimes. This is the language, the crimes that really include genocide. When you see the stage is being set for situations where genocide is possible, it is the responsibility of powers that be to activate the responsibility to protect. That must happen now, before it is too late. The implications could be economic, it could be demographic, it could be humanitarian. And in many areas of Ethiopia, primarily Tigray, we are seeing people are already starving. Starvation is being used, although it's not new in the tradition of Ethiopia, is being used as a weapon of war. It is better to intervene now. Than come back later on and apologize for not being active enough before the tragedy has happened. So it could have serious implications, but still I want to encourage the leaders of the world and the leaders of Africa, particularly this comatose and deadly organization called the African Union. I have never been a fan of the African Union. For the 58 years that it has existed, they have been a disgrace to the African people. They have seen and again seen tragedies, famines, insurgencies, assassinations, calamities, state-sponsored terror regimes in every corner of Africa, and they kept mum. And even now, the chair of the African Commission, Musa Faki, I must say, come from a country where these calamities are almost a regularity. The country he comes from, for the last decades, a tragedy has been unfolding. And in Ethiopia, they have been seeing, crisis after crisis unfolding tens of miles away from their headquarters. And they never seen evil, they have never heard evil. So African Union cannot be part of the solution of any African problem, because they have seen how important they are, how corrupt they are, how really irresponsible they are. I don't think when Abiy goes to South Sudan and Uganda and Kigali and say that we solve African problems, I think if those leaders, if they have any dignity in them, they should tell Abiy the truth, that he is the leader of that country, and all the crises and tragedies unfolding in that country happened on his watch, and he takes full responsibility for what happened. That is the way a courageous leader tells another leader when they come, but not some empty and fake things called African solutions for African problems. We have never seen African leaders solving African problems. They have been primarily a disgrace. And in my opinion, I have been thinking, and one day maybe we should get together with other people thinking about African People's Union, not African big men's union. That I think African peoples everywhere should think about a people's organization, not a club for dictators and tyrannical regimes.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point. And given this lethargy and inherent weakness of the African Union, do you see any chance for Obasanjo, the former Nigerian president, in this effort to bring the warring parties to the negotiating table?
Obasanjo is a nice man. I worked in Nigeria for 5 years before, and I haven't met him, but I have known him, and he is a good individual, and in his country he did some things that are good. But the situation he is in now, either he does not understand what is going on, or he has other motivations in it, because the African Union, I think, I'm not sure, but he was there as an observer of the African Union for the sham elections that has taken place in Ethiopia in June, that has recrowned Abiy now. African Union has taken positions that has tainted and completely destroyed if it has any reputation before. So I really feel sorry for this great African icon to associate himself with this really discredited, completely discredited and comatose organization. I think Obasanjo should quit this position and go back to his retirement. I do not see him really within the framework of African Union bringing about any credible and sustainable solution. And if you remember, the same man, Abiy, was the man who, when the African Union appointed elders comprising of 3 respected leaders of Africa to intervene and organize talks between TPLF and her, he humiliated them in Addis Ababa. Complete humiliation. He had no respect for them. And all of a sudden, we are seeing Obasanjo. People have to go back to what has happened in history. If those 3 leaders were not respected, I do not see how the leadership of Addis Ababa will respect Obasanjo. And I hope that Obasanjo will not put himself in such a terrible situation.
So after humiliating those three prominent persons, Abiy recently was on a trip in the neighboring countries. What could be the motive of Abiy in these diplomatic missions?
Of course, the motive we understand. Abiy is a corner because he has failed his people. He has failed in every respect. You know, Ethiopia. I have never been a fan of Ethiopian political class and Ethiopian political regimes. Never. I'm a Somali, and my people and my ancestors have been at the receiving end of the worst of Ethiopia. But there has never been a leader like Abiy, even by the terrible standards of Ethiopia. There has never been a leader like Abiy. So he is cornered in every respect. He has messed up Ethiopia diplomatically, politically, militarily, economically. So he feels cornered. So, and even the powers of the world that used to be the close allies of Ethiopia are shunning him because they were trying to tell him, change course. This is not sustainable. The way you are going is not sustainable. So he has decided to shut his ears and his eyes. So then this story, children's story about Africans for African solutions, he went there. And to be frank, where did he go? Where did he go? Did he go to Kenya, which is a democracy? No. He went to Uganda, where there is a man who has been in power for 35 years, and Rwanda and South Sudan, who has been struggling to be a state and staying in its own corner. So the people he went to are not people known for promoting democracy and for promoting for peaceful resolution of conflicts, even within their own countries. So I understand why he wants to have allies. Also, if you did not mention, but he also went to Turkey, which I wrote a piece about. I don't know what on earth Mr. Erdogan had in mind when he invited and associated himself with a leader who clearly is a potential war criminal, and even at that, trying to secure some armies to kill more people or to destabilize more the country. So that was these tours basically is instincts of survival, nothing else. But I don't think they will bear him any fruit. Even if the latest weapons of the world is given to Abiy, he may destroy things, but he will never find a credible and sustainable solution for Ethiopia, for sure. If he had, we would have seen it. Every step he has taken, we have not seen anything that makes sense to his own people, and he refused the advice and the sincere advice and the counsel, wise counsel of those who were closest allies of Ethiopia for many years.
As the war is raging, so many atrocities happened in the war on Tigray. Do you see any possibility of accountability, particularly to those main actors like leaders of Ethiopia and Eritrea and some regional leaders in Ethiopia?
Yes, of course. As I told you, my people have suffered a lot. You know, no one in the world should get away with massacres of innocent people. What is called atrocity crimes. using starvation as a weapon of war, using rape as a weapon of war, imprisoning people because not of what they did, but because of who they are. As I told you, I'm a Somali, but my people have suffered in Ethiopia on a scale that are very horrifying. So everyone who has been involved in the atrocities that have been perpetrated in Tigray and other places must be held accountable. Otherwise, we see this vicious circle coming back. And historically, a leader who has been associated with atrocity crimes like genocide or ethnic cleansing or starvation or rape on a large scale has never really survived politically. It is very difficult unless you are a Kim, North Korean Kim, where you have a world of your own, sequestered in a planet of your own. If you really want to live with the world and in partnership with a community of nations in the world, then you cannot commit egregious crimes against humanity and crimes of war and crimes of genocide and get away with it. They must, and those I believe that are there must not allow anyone to get away with these crimes.
The question is how, the three mechanisms for, accountability under international jurisdiction. One is by self-referral when the country refers it to the ICC, but Ethiopia is not even a member of the ICC, and that may not happen without regime change. And also the fact that the international community is divided, especially those big powers with veto powers in the UN Security Council are, standing in the way. Some countries are standing in the way, and there's it's unlikely that there would be referral by the Security Council to the ICC. So how do you see this happening?
It's not easy, particularly if you know the international system. Genocide is a word that is usually avoided, because if the powers in the world and the multilateral organizations and those who are in the Security Council, particularly those with the veto powers, if they utter the word genocide, it is incumbent upon them to take action. So they do not want to use clearly the language of genocide. That is generally accepted. But what I can tell you, Mikhail, is that the first thing to do is to document what has happened. This is the first thing. So I suggest that those in positions of authority in those areas where these crimes have been committed to meticulously spend a lot of time, ask the help of the international community and experts to document this, have photos, satellite pictures, names, everything that has happened. Once that documentation is fully documented and a dossier is established, you mobilize. There are a lot of lawyers that are in different parts of the world who voluntarily support and undertake activities associated with this. One day, I am telling you, it is impossible in this century, 21st century, to commit egregious crimes on that scale and get away with it. Justice may be delayed, but it will never be denied. It will never be denied. It will come one time. The only way they can completely get away with is that if they are allowed to completely destroy evidence or somehow manage to not allow evidence to be gathered. You know, that should not be allowed. It will come. The first priority is to document in methodical ways, in graphic details, what exactly has happened.
The push towards negotiation is coming from different quarters, but the warring parties seem to be resolved to fight it out. There does seem to be the appetite for negotiation. Do you see ripe conditions for negotiation at this time in Ethiopia?
You know, generally, a negotiated settlement is generally the least costly and the best for everyone. But it takes two to tango. Abiy cannot negotiate with himself or his political minions that he has appointed. You negotiate with your opponents. And Abiy has the prosperity team has not shown any desire to engage in credible negotiation and discussions. And also, they have, in ways that are very difficult to understand and make sense of, they have also ignored the advice and wise counsel of the international community. So that is why maybe the international community decided, when I say international community, the powers that be, maybe they decided that let Abiy taste what it is, you know, what war is, and it's quite possible that the military solution may be the only language that Abiy understands. This is my reading of the mind and the mindset of Abiy, because if you look at the way he is rationalizing things, on the way the regime in Addis Ababa is understanding things or explaining things, it is like, I want to go there, give me a drone, I will solve this problem. Give me a missile, I'll solve this problem. Give me a howitzer or PM-21 or MiG jets or French airplanes. You know, this is the way he is approaching, and his general is approaching this, and we do not see any results. And in the history of Ethiopia, you know better than I am, you know, when you are fighting your own people, not only in Ethiopia, everywhere in the world, if you are fighting your own people, the chances of you winning completely, it is very, very limited. And if you win in the long term, you win at a cost that are very difficult to recover. I've been to many parts of your country, including Tigray. Tigray was one of the highly developed regions of Ethiopia. And now you see what is there. Things have been completely demolished. I studied the education system there. Even I brought some foreign countries to as an example in the education system there once, and see now everything has been destroyed or you know confiscated or taken away or stolen. The same thing will happen now. Some people who think they are safe, they will suffer the same fate tomorrow. This is what I really don't understand, the Ethiopians, how they think, the Ethiopian political class. Because those who think that you can destroy one part of Ethiopia and the rest will be safe, they are fooling themselves. The politics does not work like that. You know, inclusive politics, progressive politics, enlightened politics does not work like that. Tomorrow, those who are now rooting for Abiy and saying that good, do this, they may see the same fate and worse, you know, befalling them sooner. The Ethiopians must understand that only they can exist within legal and constitutional framework, not the Abyssinian political culture and the Abyssinian system of governance, where they believe the philosophy of justice of the kings or rule of the kings. In the 21st century, this doesn't work. It is only democratic, egalitarian system that work for everybody, every community in Ethiopia. And in my view, although EBRDF has really missed a lot of opportunities to implement the constitution, the current constitution is one of the best constitutions in the world. That must be the basis for deciding the future of Ethiopia. I understand that some nations and nationalities may demand some more, because those who have been completely wronged and who have faced hostility on a scale that are very difficult to understand may decide we do not want to belong to this union, because we believe that we have on the verge of been on the verge of being decimated. That is how I see it.
Going back to the international community, the role of the international community, there is some concern that the international community might be preoccupied with apportioning blame, appearing to be presentable to both sides through a parity of guilt between all sides. What do you make of this approach?
It's a tradition that is used in international diplomacy. Politics is a dirty game, even at the international level. It's a system that is used, and of course countries, particularly that countries ruled by tyrants, always use these tactics. Because what I see in Ethiopia right now, the primary preoccupation, obsession of PP and its leaders is to find a way of saying that, also our opponents are also committing suicide. But they who are the responsible, saying that they are the responsible leaders of the country, do not have any other option. Playing that game does not solve any problem, does not bring about any sustainable solution. So the best thing is to give up this game. Particularly, you can play this game when there is peace in the country, when there is stability. But in a country where the conditions are moving in a direction of where commission of atrocity crimes is a possibility, or even genocide is a possibility, it is really dangerous and irresponsible to play that game of blaming one party or another, or apportioning blame. Ethiopia has passed that stage. The leaders of Ethiopia, they are the ones who are claiming they are the legitimate authority of the country. They have the responsibility to behave, act in a manner that indicates what they are claiming to be.
I think we have come to the end of the interview, but if you have any final thoughts to make, you're most welcome, Professor.
Yes, number one, I always wish Ethiopia and the Ethiopians and the rest of Africa the best, and hope that somehow some miracle will come up to resolve this problem peacefully and democratic manner. I would like to underline that African Union has never been a pro-African. In my view, African Union is un-African in its business model and un-African in its behavior. It has always been like this. It has been a disgrace, absolute disgrace for Africans everywhere in the world. I do not think that they can be part of any credible and sustainable solution. in what is going on in Ethiopia. And the international community, I say, activate the responsibility to protect now. Listen to these words. Activate the responsibility to protect now, and hold those who are howling the language of genocide and circulating the implements of genocide responsible. They must be held responsible before it's too late.
Thank you very much. With that, we come to the end of the interview. We really appreciate your time, for your very analytical reflections.
Thank you very much. Wish you all the best.
Thank you. Bye.